Parks Conservancy, who is Chris Wiles is on here. So as I mentioned at a previous standing committee meeting that in the budget, in the parks budget, is $9,000 for them, a payment to them for work that they do promoting and improving the Syracuse parks. So this is just their request and my request to support that request for that payment to be made before this fiscal year is over. And if there's any questions, you do, I believe you do have the letters submitted by them showing how their funds were used, but Chris Wiles, who is president of the Syracuse Parks Conservancy, is also on this call as well, if anybody has any questions. Sorry, I lost my video there.
Yeah, I guess, Mr. Wiles, if you wouldn't mind just walking us through, I guess, what the plan is this year, if things have changed because of what's going on or with COVID, and I guess what your plan going forward is.
He looks like he's muted.
Yeah.
He looks like he's muted. If somebody can unmute him.
Okay.
There you go, Chris.
Yes, one thing has changed, and that is that we have partnered or want to partner with the Parks Department in virtual programming for this summer. And one way we're going to do that is we are reaching out to all the park associations, the individual park associations, to ask them for contributions towards this goal. And we plan to match whatever they contribute up to a total amount of $5,000. So that's one area that is new and will be different this year. We've also still have in the hopper a fundraising basketball game that may occur this year or may not. We got up to a week or two before that game was to be played when the plug was pulled. So we have in our account $5,000 from the major sponsor of it, and we had begun or we're in the middle of soliciting funds for program ads in the program. We really had a good operation going. We had the cooperation of the police, the firemen, the Parks Department, of course, was putting in an awful lot of work, and we hope this year to be able to do that game and increase our funding in some way. The rest is, we have been we will not be pursuing until the COVID disappears. We partnered on the Westmoreland Park project with the Parks Department on that. We have, what else have we done, Julie? Well, almost all of our.
You sponsored gifts or prizes for an art contest that we had, and I believe that we'll have more of those. We also, from our department, are moving towards we obviously are doing virtual programming, but also we're going to do mobile recreation as best we can. So some of the funds that they raise will actually be purchasing items that we give away to our residents as a part of that program as well.
And our big project is the one that's in process still that you saw on the list, and that's to tie in our website, which hopefully would be a better run to the city Department of Parks and Rec and all of the facilities that they offer. We just haven't been able to do that because at this point, because the COVID-19 has slowed everything down.
So just to expand on their website, what they've been doing with our help is they're going to actually have a search by amenity tool so that it can link right off the city website. And if somebody wants to know exactly where there's barbecue pits or pavilions or picnic tables, volleyball, net, anything, they can search by the tool. So it's that's also how they're using some of these funds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you don't have, if there was nothing else, then I could say, Chris, does anybody need Chris Wiles? He doesn't have to stay for the rest of this if he doesn't want to. Any other Parks Conservancy questions? Okay, I'm gonna now kind of switch it back over to Steve Harris.
Julie, can I say one thing to Chris before he goes?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hey, Chris, I just wanted to say I've been thinking about Westmoreland a lot. It'd be good if we could send a reminder to Mike, see what the status is on everything with that, with the Bayheim group.
To Mike Bristol, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good if you could reach out. You know, I've tried him a couple of times. It'd be good if you got it from a couple of different sources.
And he hasn't responded?
I mean, I've reached out 3 or 4 times. I think you've been on the email chains where he said he would get back to us, you know, but we still haven't gotten any definitive responses. So it'd be good to get just reach out, ask him what his timeline is and what the program is, you know?
Yeah, I will do that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna now continue the discussion that we started at this last standing committee meeting with Steve Harris. Steve, we did invite Greg Michael from Onondaga Earth Corps to answer some of those additional questions you guys had, but then there are 2 other waiver items on there as well. So Steve, if you're on here, if you want to pick up or just reintroduce it, summarize, and we can have any questions open for it.
Hello, everybody. The big agenda item is that we have funding through a settlement between Honeywell and for the Onondaga Lake that allows us to do some restoration along the creek walk. And the scope of work is to have a conservation corps do the work. And we wanted to pursue a bid waiver item with ensure young people from the city get the work, because the only other conservation corps that I know of in the area are out of the county, but functioning earth corps, including in Morrisville, Buffalo, Albany area. And it would be a waiver not to exceed $675,000. It would be not to exceed $200,000 in any 1 year, with options for renewal till the end of the contract. I do have a budget and budget narrative, and I thought I did send that along, but it doesn't appear I do. And I have an email queued up. I can send that to people if they would like right now. With that, I'm ready to answer any
I'd like to
questions.
see it, Steve. Counselor Hogan.
Got it.
We will also make sure that it gets it to the main council office as well, so that it's distributed before next week's study session.
Are there any questions related to it?
Commissioner, you'll need to provide the attachment to the city clerk.
Okay.
I have John Capanis on this email. Should they only go through him?
No, I'd like, well, it doesn't
I
have to
think
go
that's for
through.
later, but for right now. Are there any questions while Steve forwards that?
What was the amount again? I'm sorry.
The total amount is not to exceed 675, and in any 1 year not to exceed 200,000. Most years it's not going to be that high. There's some peak activity that would lead it to being very high because of the peak activity, and then it gradually becomes less over the 5 years.
And just to be clear for anybody who missed the last standing committee, none of this is city money. Correct, Sam?
Commissioner, what's the funding source?
It's through a grant. Steve, who is the actual funder?
It is U.S. Fish and Wildlife is the overseer of the money, which came from Honeywell. It's
Okay, good.
called the Natural Resource Damage Assessment and Restoration Program. So the
And
money
that-
is in an account. No reimbursement is required.
And the Parks Department will supply the supervisory personnel, Commissioner, for all these groups?
Well, Steve will act as the agent to make sure that Earth Corps is doing the work properly.
But these are all like teenagers working, correct?
They're not being hired by us. They would all be Earth Corps employees, so therefore supervised by Earth Corps.
Okay, but there'll be a Parks liaison person, basically coordinating
be-
anything?
That would be Steve.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions on that? Okay, Steve has two other waiver items that these are just your standard annual waivers that are submitted every year about this time. So Steve, if you want to highlight those and summarize those.
Yes, one of them is with Cornell Cooperative Extension to do $5,000 worth of urban agriculture related urban agriculture at Seals Community Center, and then related to sugar mapling and working with a couple hundred youth at Corcoran and Roberts School.
So I guess my question with that is how is this going to work now with, you know, the new safety steps that we've taken, that school's not really in session? Like how is Cornell Co-op, how are they going to go about, you know, doing this work? Do we know?
So some of this is urban ag, excuse me, programming, which is programming that can be done outside. I can't speak for them, but I know that, you know, they're working, same thing with ERCOR, they're working out the protocols because they don't have to be based in a building, that they can have small numbers outside, spaced out, so that they can still do this. And then I think the intent is that this is an annual agreement so that when they get to a more normal place, the agreement's already in place.
Yeah, all this work is outdoor classroom activity to begin with. I don't think Cornell has dialogued with the school district for what this will look like in the fall, but this is work that can follow all the current COVID rules. And we don't know what the modified version looks like yet. We know which work they want to program.
And it's
Continuation of
then-
the tapping that they do in Elmwood.
Uh-huh.
How many hours are kids actually involved? Because it appears to me that it's like a group of super committed folks who come and set it all up, and then it drips into a barrel, and then there's like some kind of pancake breakfast where I personally think there's like a conspiracy where everybody goes to Wegmans and buys maple syrup beforehand. But
Yeah.
how much time do the kids actually spend?
I mean, that's varied. What they do is they don't only do it there. I know they've done some at Thorndon Park as well, and then one other location that escapes me. But what they do is that most of the hours are spent during the education day, where they go out in the field and see what was done. You know, obviously with a whole classroom of kids, it's not really practical or feasible to take them all out to set up the lines. So they are selecting a smaller number of students that help with that.
okay. And we can get a representative of Cornell Co-op on the next call if you would like, but I want to remind everybody too that we do have Greg Michael, it looks like, on the call too. So if there's any specific Earth Corps questions.
I'm glad there's someone from Earth Corps, but yeah, just for the study session, if we could have someone from Cornell just to give us an update again on what their plan is going forward, because I'd like to hear from folks on, you know, again, what their plan is and what steps they've taken and what their dealings with the school district have been.
Okay, so we have another waiver too for a similar type stewardship program with Earth Corps. So Greg Michael, are you on the call that you can speak to? Similar question, I guess, because I think that they would sort of be related.
Yeah, if you could speak to how they're going about getting the 6 individuals and, you know, I guess what the plan is with it. You know, I know it says 6 youth to do 300 trees, you know, what the process is with all that, if you could walk us through that.
Yeah, so I am out here on the creek walk now, but we've been the last two weeks, we've been back to work with our crews. We've developed our COVID policies that comply with the state. We've had to ramp up our supplies of masks and disinfectants and set up our cleaning regimen, and we're taking the temperatures of employees every morning as they're coming into a building at 910 Montgomery Street, which is just south of the SUNY Educational Opportunity Center. We just have access to hand washing and restrooms there. But it's been a process getting everybody, the youth in our program. And when we say youth, that's between 15 and 25. Just getting everybody comfortable being out and working together. We've set up plexiglass barriers in the window trucks. So we're taking it pretty seriously and making sure all of our project partners are feeling safe. The question, I just wanted to clarify, I'm out here at the Creek Walk and want to make sure I'm answering the question. This is a bid waiver related to which project, Steve?
This is the OEC stewardship contract, which is our annual operations funding that allows you to prune trees and do stewardship with the community.
Right. So for that, a bulk of that work is actually getting out and pruning trees, which we're following the same protocols that I just mentioned. Our crews are small. We have advanced crews, so adult to an advanced young adult, but it's our more advanced crew members who are doing that work. They're doing 1,500 trees. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So that work is spread out and in teams. They're in our trucks, which 2 people do a truck, and there's actually a plexiglass barrier between the front and back seats. So a lot of the work is that. It's just getting your trees pruned for you. The stewardship portion of it, we haven't gotten to. Steve's let us know that funding that ends in end of June has been put on hold. Typically, we're engaging children at the park centers in tree maintenance efforts, teaching them about the benefits of trees. We're doing tree walks in parks with different groups, whether it's the parks associations or neighborhood groups, to kind of get them connected with their trees. We have not we're focused first on having a safe workplace for our folks. But we've been working on scenarios where, again, we're meeting in small groups and outdoors and following strict protocol to make sure that people are safe. And we would clear anything with the parks team before we moved ahead with that. But, a walk along the new stretch of the Creek Walk, I don't know if you can see your new trees here. It'd be possible to do tours in small groups staggered throughout the day to get people connected. And we're hoping to focus a lot of outreach on the new stretch of the Creek Walk because it is such a new amenity that's beautiful and we'd like people to know about. And the youth in our program will be heavily involved in kind of planning how to get, their own neighbors out to that kind of event.
Okay. Counselors, any other questions?
Not with that. I'm all set with that unless anyone else has any other questions.
Okay.
I'd say he was on the Creek Walk.
Yes, I'm on the Creek Walk right now. Yep.
Okay. Commissioner, it's still, the Creek Walk is still under the management of Parks, DPW, and everybody, basically. There's nobody in charge, basically, of the Creek Walk, right? Maintenance wise.
It's sort of understood that summer maintenance is going towards parks and winter maintenance is going towards DPW for snow removal.
Okay, so you'll be the main people coordinating any kind of action on the creek walk. Good, okay. That's
Yeah,
all I
and we added that as a mowing location this year. So this is the first year that all of the creek walk has been added to the contractor schedule.
got. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I know we have a few minutes left, but I do have a few other items. So thank you, Steve and Greg. The next item that we'll have at the next agenda is to pay authorized payment for BMI, which is just one of our music licensing. We require this because whether or not the city hosts any type of concerts, which we are not planning to do internally this summer, we have to have it for any musician who comes or any pre-recorded music that is played on any city property. So that's a not to exceed 2,200 for the contract year.
Good.
Okay.
And then I just have two other capital items. Authorize some funds from the 1920 capital improvement program. One is for park facility improvements, and I would like to request that to be authorized for $150,000 for a new playground in Norwood Park. If you recall, right at the onset of the COVID outbreak, we were going for a Kaboom grant for Norwood, and that unfortunately the funding went away. I withdrew that item. But I don't think that Norwood is still any less deserving. That is an extremely old playground. So I'd like to authorize the allocation of those funds for Norwood Park so that when we get back into a state that we can begin community play programming, it can be for that park.
So I have a couple questions about, I guess the cash capital and the project itself. Did we spend all the cash capital from the prior year on the projects that we wanted to? Like, has that been spent down or is there still?
So I'd like to say that this was going to be an extremely aggressive year for Parks and Recreation. So the answer is no. The answer is no, but the fact that we had solid plans in place this spring and summer to have had a lot of projects done. So I don't want to make excuses, but I am kind of blaming it on COVID. But as soon as we open back up, I'd like to get those programs started right back up where they were and get them going. So I do have remaining funds from previous accounts.
And with this project with Norwood Park, I know that we had talked the last time the Kaboom grant, is no longer there. When do you plan on, or at least when do you hope to begin work and start doing this project? Like when do you believe that you'll be able to?
So I think that once we kind of get to a place, hopefully here soon, that we can begin doing public engagement, which, I hopefully here is anytime soon. I'd like to get the community members. I think it's ideal in any scenario. And this actually applies for the next one too. I have another one that's for playgrounds as well. So these questions are applicable to both, or the answers applicable to both. The playgrounds are better when they're designed by the community. So once we get out there, I'd like to have a month or two or so of public engagement where we can have the kids come in or the youth come in, sit with our playground designer. And then once it's confirmed, I think an absolute realistic time frame would be spring for install. Because I just think right now the installers are so far behind that to get construction and to get a playground ordered for this year is unlikely. But I do think that we could still get it in this next fiscal year coming up, April, May, June.
And a majority of that 150 is going to be spent just on the actual playground equipment and the layout of all that. That's what that's.
Yeah, absolutely. So with our skilled, and it's happening right now at Westmoreland, we do a lot of the work in house. Skilled trades actually goes, we don't pay anything, other than the indirect costs of our staff, but skilled trades in house removes the old playground. We don't pay anybody to do that. So yeah, it is majority of spent on the playground itself and the installer.
Okay, I don't know if anyone else has any questions on that.
So on the same exact topic, it's just another capital account. So the other one, also 150,000, also from the 1920 capital improvement. This one, we usually put multiple parks in there. So this one, it hasn't been narrowed down to, but these are 3 parks that all could use new equipment. Baker Playlot, Spirit of Jubilee Park, or Lincoln Park. I know that so I haven't narrowed it down, but I would like to allocate the funds. We do this often where we will allocate to a list and then we get more feedback from the community before we narrow it down.
Okay, and when do we think that we would, have an idea of what parks we're doing, and then again, I think it probably, depending on the park, is gonna depend on what work is actually going to be done in each, or is it gonna again be like more so playground equipment and that type of?
I'd like to just say play equipment. I mean, because play equipment could be the workout machines. It could be, there's a lot of different apparatuses, but I think the timeline would be the same. This one, we just would have to narrow it down, and honestly, I haven't come up with a good way to narrow it down. Maybe just really do a close walkthrough of each park to see which one really has the more desperate need right now, or if there's an ability to split that 150 so that each one gets a few fitness pieces. But timeline wise for actual construction, I think that spring is still very, very likely and very reasonable.
Okay, all right. Again, I don't know if any of the counselors have any further questions on this specific item.
Those are my only items that will be on the next agenda.
Okay, I guess, again, if there aren't any other questions from council, the folks on the committee, you know, is everyone okay and comfortable with moving these forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's DPW now.
Okay, thanks.